My name is Ryan, and I found out that my wife, Karen, has been cheating on me. The way I found out was completely unexpected, and I'm still reeling from it. The betrayal didn't come from a text message, an overheard phone call, or any of the typical signs. No, it came from a place I never would have imagined, her best friend, Lindsay. And it happened at a toy store, of all places. I've been married to Karen for 4 years, and we don't have kids yet, but we had started talking about it. We've had some rough patches here and there, sure. But nothing that made me think we were in real trouble. Karen always seemed happy. She was affectionate, loving, and we spent a lot of time together. I didn't have any reason to question her loyalty. That all changed when Lindsay approached me in the toy store the week before Christmas. I'd gone in to pick up a gift for my nephew, and as I was wandering the aisles, I heard a familiar voice calling my name. I turned around, and there she was, Lindsay. She and Karen had been best friends for years, so I always felt comfortable around her. We exchanged pleasantries, and then she looked at me, her expression unreadable. "Ryan, can I talk to you for a second?" Lindsay said quietly, her voice full of hesitation. I was confused at first, wondering why she would pull me aside like this in a store, but I followed her to a quieter corner near the baby toys. "What's up?" I asked, my smile faltering slightly. Lindsay took a deep breath, avoiding my gaze. She fidgeted with the hem of her jacket as if trying to find the right words. I need to tell you something. Something about Karen. Something that's been eating me up inside for weeks now. I didn't know why, but I had a sinking feeling in my gut that whatever it was, it wouldn't be good. "What are you talking about?" I asked, suddenly tense. Lindsay hesitated again, her eyes darting around the store. Finally, she spoke in a whisper, barely audible. "Karen has been seeing someone else. She's been sleeping with him for the past 6 months, Ryan. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but I can't keep this secret anymore." I froze. I couldn't process the words at first. Karen? My wife? I felt like the floor was falling out from under me. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what Lindsay was saying. Was this a joke? Was this some sort of mistake? But Lindsay's expression wasn't one of cruelty or malice. She looked genuinely concerned, her eyes filled with regret. "I didn't want to hurt you," she continued. "But I can't just sit by and let this go on. I thought maybe you should know before it's too late." I stood there, paralyzed. My thoughts were in chaos. I was in public, surrounded by toys, by the noise of children and parents, but inside, everything was still. Cold. Numb. I couldn't wrap my head around it. My wife, the woman I trusted, the woman I had been planning a future with, had been lying to me for months. And Lindsay, her best friend, was the one who had to tell me. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't even know why I asked. Maybe I thought I needed a name to put to the betrayal. Maybe I was hoping it was some misunderstanding. But I wasn't naive enough to think that. Lindsay hesitated again, then sighed. "His name's Matt. He's someone she met at work. I don't know all the details, but I know enough to know that it's been going on for months. She tried to hide it, but I found out, and I couldn't keep quiet about it anymore." Matt. My mind repeated the name over and over, but it didn't make it any easier to understand. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shout at Lindsay for telling me this in such a calm, detached way. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, feeling the weight of it all crush me. "Ryan, I'm so sorry," Lindsay said softly, her voice full of sympathy. "I wish I didn't have to be the one to tell you. But you deserve to know." I didn't say anything in response. I didn't know how to respond. I just nodded, my eyes unfocused, trying to process the enormity of what Lindsay had just told me. The betrayal wasn't just about sex, it was about the lies. The years of trust, of building a life together, and now it felt like it was all crumbling around me. Lindsay stood there, waiting for me to say something, but I couldn't bring myself to speak. I felt numb, like I was in a fog. Finally, I looked up at her and managed to croak out a single word, "Why?" Lindsay's face softened, but she didn't have an answer. She just shook her head, her eyes full of pity. "I don't know. I wish I could answer that. But I think you need to talk to Karen. I can't be the one to explain all of this." I nodded again, barely processing her words. "Thanks," I muttered, though I wasn't sure if I was thanking her for telling me or for just being there. I didn't even know how I was supposed to feel right now. As I walked out of the store, the world around me felt distant, like I wasn't even a part of it anymore. My chest was tight, my breath shallow. Every step felt like it took everything out of me. My mind was flooded with thoughts, but the one thing that kept coming back was revenge. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was angry, furious even. All I could think about was making Karen feel the pain she had caused me. I didn't know how or what I was going to do, but I needed her to regret what she had done. By the time I got home, I was seething. I couldn't even look at Karen without wanting to scream. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but part of me knew I had to think this through. This wasn't just about confronting her, it was about making her understand the weight of her betrayal. I didn't just want to hurt her, I wanted her to feel every ounce of the pain I was carrying. She came home later that evening, oblivious to what I knew. When she walked in, I couldn't even look at her. My body was trembling with the rage I was trying to suppress. She didn't know that I knew. And I wasn't sure how I was going to tell her. But I couldn't wait any longer. "Karen," I said through gritted teeth, "we need to talk." And I knew in that moment that everything was about to change. I had never felt this kind of anger before. It was raw, primal, and I could feel it boiling up inside me with each second Karen stood there, unaware of what I knew. I wanted to yell, to scream at her, to make her feel the depth of the betrayal, but I also wanted her to explain herself. I wanted to know the truth. I needed to hear it from her lips. "Ryan," Karen said, noticing the tension in my voice, "what's going on? You're acting strange." I could feel the blood rushing to my face, my chest tightening. She had no idea what I had learned, no idea how much I was hurting. I was trembling with fury, but I forced myself to take a deep breath. I couldn't let her know how much she had already broken me. I had to take control. I stared at her, my voice steady, but the anger still simmering beneath the surface. "I know about Matt," I said flatly. Her face went pale. I could see the color draining from her cheeks as she froze, the blood rushing from her face. What?" she stammered, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't pretend like you don't know who I'm talking about," I said, my voice sharp. "I know you've been sleeping with him. I know about your affair. How long, Karen? How long has this been going on?" She opened and closed her mouth, struggling for words, her hands shaking. The tears started then, though they didn't seem genuine, not at first. "Ryan, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. It was a mistake, it was just a one-time thing at first, but I got caught up in it. I never meant for it to turn into this." I clenched my fists, willing myself not to lash out at her. "A mistake? A one-time thing?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You've been seeing him for months, Karen. How could you do this to me? How could you lie to me every day, sleep in our bed like everything was normal, while you were with him?" She broke down, sobbing now, her whole body shaking with the weight of her guilt. "I don't know," she said, her voice barely a whisper between sobs. "I don't know how it happened. It was stupid. It was all a mistake. I love you, Ryan, I really do. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to hear her apologies and somehow feel like I could forgive her. But deep down, I knew it was too late. The damage had been done, and I wasn't the same person anymore. I couldn't just pretend like everything was fine. I couldn't go back to that. I don't care about your love right now, Karen, I snapped, my voice rough. You think your apologies will fix this? You think you can just cry and say sorry and I'll forget what you've done? You've completely broken my trust. Everything we had, it means nothing now. She looked at me desperately, her tears flowing freely, her hands reaching out toward me. Please, Ryan, I know I've hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you. But I made a huge mistake. Please, don't leave me. Please, don't. I'm not going to leave you, Karen, I interrupted, my voice icy. But I'm not going to forgive you either. You've crossed a line, and I don't know if I can ever come back from that. I need time. I turned away from her, my chest tight, and walked out of the room. I didn't want to look at her. I didn't want to listen to her anymore. I couldn't hear her excuses. I needed to get away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my mind. I was so angry, I couldn't think straight. I thought about what Karen had done, about how she had deceived me, how she had lied to my face every day for months. I thought about Matt, whoever the hell he was, and how she had chosen him over me. It hurt more than anything I had ever felt in my life. But amidst the rage, there was something else building inside me, a desire for revenge. I didn't want to let her get away with this. I didn't want to just accept the betrayal and move on. I needed her to understand how deeply she had hurt me. She had to feel the loss, to understand what it meant to betray the person who loved you. I spent the night thinking, planning. I couldn't just confront her and let it end there. No, I needed to do something that would make her realize the magnitude of what she had done to me. Something that would shake her, make her regret ever crossing that line. I wanted her to feel the loss, to understand what it meant to betray the person who loved you. I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed help. And there was only one person I could turn to, my best friend, Tyler. Tyler had always been the one I could count on. He wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty if it meant making a point. I knew he would understand the pain I was going through, and more importantly, I knew he would help me make sure Karen regretted what she had done. I called him the next morning. My voice was tight, strained with emotion, but he didn't hesitate. "I'm in, Ryan," he said without hesitation. "Tell me what you want to do." I took a deep breath, my mind racing. I had been thinking about this all night. We need to make her see that I'm not the guy she can just come back to when it's convenient. We need to make her feel like she lost everything. I'm not going to be the guy she walks all over anymore. Tyler didn't ask any more questions. He knew exactly what I meant. We'll do it right. Let's make sure she knows what she's lost, man. By the time New Year's Eve came around, I had a plan. I had already started distancing myself from Karen. I kept my distance, pretending everything was fine, while I laid the groundwork for what was to come. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing how much I was hurting. She had to see that I was moving on, that I was better than she thought I was. And then, on the night of the party, everything would fall into place. I knew Karen would be there, along with Tyler, who, I was told, would be there with his new girlfriend. It would be the perfect setup. She would see me, living my life, and for the first time, she would understand that I was done with her lies. But I also knew that after this night, everything would change. The plan had to work. I couldn't afford for it to fail. And so, as the countdown to midnight began, I prepared to make Karen feel the weight of her own choices. The night of the party arrived, and everything felt different. The air was cold outside, but inside, the energy was buzzing. The house was filled with people, friends, acquaintances, and even some family members. As soon as I walked through the door, I could feel the eyes on me. The weight of the situation was settling in. I had made the decision to move forward, to show Karen what she had lost, and tonight was the night it would happen. Tyler was already there, standing by the kitchen with his girlfriend, Amanda. I could see him watching me from across the room, a subtle nod of acknowledgement when I caught his eye. He knew what I was doing, what we were doing. We had carefully planned this moment. But now that I was here, I wasn't sure how I felt. There was still anger, but it wasn't consuming me the way it had been. What I felt now was more a sense of closure. This was it. This was the final act. I spotted Karen in the crowd, laughing with a group of friends, completely unaware that I had already seen her secret. I could feel my pulse quicken as I watched her. She looked beautiful, as always, but she seemed so different now. She wasn't the same woman I had fallen in love with. She was a stranger to me. Tyler had advised me to keep my distance from her for the night, to let her notice me and see how I was handling the situation. We weren't trying to make her jealous, it wasn't about that. It was about making her realize that I didn't need her. That I was better off without her. I wasn't going to beg for her love. I wasn't going to apologize for the way she had treated me. I was finally free. I moved through the party, greeting a few people, pretending like everything was normal. The whole time, I could feel Karen's eyes on me. Every time I laughed with someone or shared a conversation, I could sense her wondering what was going on. I wasn't sure if she knew what I was doing, but I didn't care anymore. She didn't get to control this narrative. The countdown to midnight was approaching, and the tension in the air was palpable. I could feel the excitement and the anticipation from everyone around me. But in the back of my mind, I knew this night wasn't about celebrating the new year, it was about finishing what had started months ago. It was about taking my power back, showing Karen that I had moved on and that her betrayal no longer had any hold over me. The clock hit 11:55 p.m., and I could see Karen looking around, her eyes finally locking onto mine. For a moment, everything stopped. She was standing in the center of the room, holding a glass of champagne, her gaze piercing. She was searching for something, trying to figure out how she could fix things. She thought this was her moment to reconcile. But it wasn't. I wasn't the man she could run back to. I wasn't going to play her game. I made my way toward the kitchen, where Tyler and Amanda were talking. As I passed Karen, I could feel her eyes following me. I didn't glance her way. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. She reached out, but I didn't stop. "Ryan, wait," she called out, her voice desperate. I paused for a moment but didn't turn to face her. I could hear the urgency in her voice, but I wasn't going to let her draw me back in. I had already made up my mind. "Ryan, please," she said, more softly this time, stepping closer. "We need to talk." "Not tonight, Karen," I cut her off, my voice firm, but not raised. "You've had your chances. I'm not doing this anymore. This isn't something I can fix." Her expression faltered, her mouth slightly opening as if she didn't know how to respond. I saw her glancing at Tyler and Amanda, who were still in the kitchen, but I didn't care. This was my moment, not hers. It was the last chance I was giving her to see me standing on my own. The seconds ticked away, and as the countdown to midnight began, I watched Karen's face shift from confusion to realization. She understood, but she didn't want to. She didn't want to face the fact that I was no longer waiting for her to fix things. The truth hit her, and I saw her trying to hide the hurt in her eyes. But it was too late. 10. 9. 8. The crowd around us began chanting, but all I could focus on was Karen's face. The woman who had betrayed me, who had lied to my face for months, was now standing there, watching me walk away from her. 7. 6. The countdown continued. Karen reached out one last time, but I pulled my arm back and turned away, not looking back. 5. 4. 3. I moved away from her completely, joining Tyler and Amanda in the kitchen. My heart was racing, not with anger, but with something else. Relief, maybe. I had done it. I had let go. I wasn't letting her back into my life, no matter how hard she tried. 2. 1. The room erupted in cheers, everyone raising their glasses to the new year, but I wasn't celebrating for the same reasons. I wasn't celebrating the year ahead. I was celebrating the fact that I was finally free from the chains that Karen had put on me. Free from the lies, from the betrayal. As the crowd cheered around me, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. It wasn't about revenge, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about reclaiming my life, taking control of my own future. I turned back to look at Karen one last time. She stood there, still frozen, unsure of what to do next. Her face was pale, her eyes searching for some way to fix this. But it was too late. She had lost me. And she would never get me back. That night, as I left the party with Tyler and Amanda, I didn't feel any more anger. There was no bitterness or regret. Just peace. I had made my decision. I had let go of the past, and I was ready to move forward. The next few days felt like a strange calm after the storm. I thought I was done with the whole mess. I thought I had taken control, shown Karen what I had become, and that she'd get the picture. I thought the worst was behind me. The plan had worked. I was finally free, and the start of the new year felt like a fresh beginning. But life, as it often does, had other plans for me. A week after New Year's Eve, I was at home, catching up on some work I'd been putting off and sorting through some emails. It was just another regular night, nothing out of the ordinary, or so I thought. My phone buzzed across the table, and I glanced at it absent-mindedly. I didn't recognize the number, but I had gotten used to random calls lately. I figured it was just someone selling something or trying to offer me some service. I answered the phone, half-heartedly bracing myself for a telemarketer's pitch. Hello? Ryan? I froze at the sound of the voice. It wasn't a telemarketer. It wasn't even a stranger. It was Matt, the guy who had been sleeping with Karen. A rush of anger and confusion surged through me. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there for a few seconds, trying to figure out why he was calling me. Ryan, I know you're probably pissed, but please, just listen to me. I need to explain something, Matt said, his voice oddly calm, almost too calm for my liking. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at my phone, my blood pressure rising. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want any more excuses, any more explanations. But there was something in his voice that told me this wasn't just another apology. Something was different. I don't care about your apologies, I finally said, my voice tight with emotion. Why the hell are you calling me? Because it's not what you think, Matt said quickly, his voice a bit shaky now, as if he were nervous. Look, I never meant for things to go this far. But there's something you need to know. Something about Karen that you don't know. Something I should have told you a long time ago. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I wasn't sure whether I was angry or intrigued, but I had to know what he was talking about. What the hell are you talking about? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I can't just let you think the worst of her, Ryan. It wasn't what you think. Karen wasn't the one who started all of this. She wasn't the one who sought me out. It was her idea to end things with you, and I don't know why she did it. But the truth is, I'm not the only one she's been with. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. What? What do you mean? Listen, Matt said quickly, I don't know how to say this, but I think you deserve to know the truth. Karen didn't just have an affair with me. There's someone else too. Someone she's been seeing longer than I've even been in the picture. And I didn't know about him at first. But now, I can't keep it to myself. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I had no idea what was going on, but I wasn't ready to hear this. I wasn't ready for my entire world to be turned upside down again. Who? I spat out, not knowing what else to say. Matt hesitated. Her boss. His name's Tom. He's the one who got her started on all of this. She's been seeing him for nearly a year, Ryan. And I think she's still seeing him, even now. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Tom. Her boss. This whole thing was worse than I could have imagined. It wasn't just an affair with some random guy, it was something far more complicated. And I was just the last to know about it. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper now, my mind struggling to comprehend what he was saying. Because you deserve to know the truth, Matt replied, sounding genuinely remorseful. I didn't know how deep this went at first. I thought it was just us, that she was using me to fill a void in her life. But I started noticing things, clues, and then I found out about Tom. I couldn't let you keep living a lie. You need to know what she's really been up to. I was shaking now. My hands were gripping the edge of the table, my mind reeling with the new information. Karen had been with Tom for nearly a year, and I had never known. How many other lies had she told me? How long had she been playing me for a fool? I need to think, I said, my voice distant. I couldn't think straight. The weight of everything was too much. Matt's words echoed in my ears, but I couldn't piece it all together. I needed to get off the phone, to think, to process. Ryan, I'm sorry, man, Matt said quietly. I didn't want to be the one to hurt you. But I couldn't live with myself knowing you didn't know. I hung up the phone, sitting there in the silence of the room. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. I felt sick, betrayed in ways I hadn't even considered. And just when I thought I was done, when I thought I had figured it all out, this new revelation hit me like a wrecking ball. I stood up and paced the room, my mind spinning. I needed to confront Karen again. But how could I? I had already done that. I had already made my decision, already let go of her. But now, everything had changed. What else was I missing? What else had she kept from me? I thought back to what Matt had said. If this was true, if she had been seeing Tom all this time, then everything I thought I knew about our marriage was a lie. The trust one had given her? It was gone. The love I had believed we shared? It was nothing but a facade. And the worst part? I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know how to move forward from this. I had already planned my revenge, my way of making her feel the pain I felt. But now, this new betrayal, felt like a punch to the gut. I wasn't just dealing with an affair. I was dealing with years of lies, deceit, and manipulation. And now, I had to decide what to do with this new information. Would I keep going with my plan? Would I change everything again? I wasn't sure, but one thing was clear, Karen's betrayal had just taken a whole new level of darkness. And I was ready to make her feel the weight of it. I couldn't sit with the new information. My mind raced. I couldn't keep running from the truth. I couldn't pretend like I had everything figured out anymore. I had to confront Karen. And I had to do it now. I spent the next few hours pacing around the house, my mind full of conflicting thoughts. How would I even begin? What would I say? The anger inside me was like a fire, burning away any remnants of the man I used to be. I wasn't just going to sit there and let her apologize again. She had already apologized more than enough, and I wasn't buying it anymore. It was getting late when I finally heard the front door open. She had come home. My chest tightened as I heard her footsteps in the hallway, the same footsteps that used to bring comfort, now bringing nothing but dread. She knocked on the door to the living room, her voice soft. "Ryan?" I didn't answer immediately. I just stared at the door, feeling the weight of everything settle into my bones. "I know you're upset, but can we please talk?" she said, sounding fragile, almost as if she were scared. I got up and opened the door. There she was, standing there, looking at me with those same eyes, but I could see something different in them now. A hint of guilt, a flicker of fear. She wasn't the woman I had married. She was someone I didn't recognize anymore. "I think you know why we need to talk, Karen," I said, my voice cold and controlled. Her eyes widened, and she stepped back a little. "Ryan, please, don't be like this. We can work through this, I swear. It was a mistake, a huge mistake, but I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely, and things got out of hand." I couldn't believe she was still trying to downplay it, still trying to paint herself as the victim in all of this. I wanted to scream at her, to make her feel the pain that had been eating away at me for the past week. But I held it in. This time, I wasn't going to lose control. "Don't you dare say it was a mistake, Karen," I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. "A mistake is accidentally spilling coffee on your shirt, not sleeping with your boss for months behind your husband's back. And don't act like you didn't plan this. You've been lying to me for so long, I don't even know who you are anymore." She flinched at my words, and I could see the tears threatening to fall. "Ryan, please. I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. And Matt, he was there for me. But I never stopped loving you. I swear. I didn't know how to get out of it. I felt my anger building again, but I fought it down. I was done with the excuses. I was done listening to her try to explain away everything she had done. "You didn't know how to get out of it?" I repeated, disbelief evident in my voice. "How about you didn't know how to respect me, how about that? You didn't know how to be honest with me, to tell me the truth, instead of sneaking around. I trusted you, Karen. I loved you. And you betrayed me in the worst possible way." She dropped her head, her shoulders shaking with the sobs she was trying to hide. "I know I've ruined everything. I know I can't undo what I've done. But I'm begging you, please, don't leave me. We can fix this, Ryan. We can fix us." It felt like I was hearing her voice from a distance, like I was already emotionally checked out. My heart had been shattered, and no amount of pleading was going to put it back together. "I'm not leaving yet," I said quietly, "but you've lost me. You'll never have me back the way you did before. And I'm not going to pretend that things can go back to normal. The damage is done." Her sobs grew louder, and she reached for my arm, but I pulled away, stepping back. I couldn't let her touch me. I couldn't let her manipulate me with her tears and apologies anymore. "I don't want your apologies, Karen," I said, my voice hardening. "I don't need them. You've broken me, and there's nothing you can say that will make it better." She looked at me with tear-filled eyes, her face a mask of regret. "I know I've hurt you, Ryan. I can't take back what I've done, but please, I'll do anything. I love you. I'm sorry." I could see it in her eyes, the guilt, the desperation. But I didn't feel anything for her anymore. My emotions had hardened into something colder, more calculated. I wasn't going to fall for her words again. I turned away, unable to stand there anymore. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you, Karen. I don't know what will happen from here. But I do know this, I'm done. And I'm not going to be the guy you can walk all over anymore." I walked to the front door, opened it, and stood there, waiting. Karen didn't say anything else. She just stood there in silence, staring at me as I stepped outside, closing the door softly behind me. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like I had one. I felt empty. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. But this confrontation had been the first step in closing this chapter. I had taken control. I had made my decision. And now, I had to figure out what came next. But one thing was certain, I wasn't going to allow Karen to destroy me. Not anymore. It's been a few weeks since the confrontation, and everything feels different. It's hard to describe. There's a strange weightlessness, like I've been carrying around a backpack full of rocks for years and finally put it down. But there's also something else, something I wasn't expecting: freedom. For the first time in what feels like forever, I can breathe without feeling like something is crushing me from the inside out. The anger, the hurt, it's still there, but it's more manageable now. And I know the only way to truly heal, to truly move forward, is to take control of my own life again. That's why, after a lot of thought, I've decided to do something radical. Something I never thought I would do. I'm going to leave. Not just for a week, or a month, but for 6 months. I need to go on a journey. I need to find myself again. I need to get as far away from this mess as possible. I've been stuck in the same patterns, the same routines, for so long, and I'm done with it. I've spent enough time reacting to what Karen has done. Now, it's time for me to do something for myself. I've booked a ticket to Europe. My plan is to travel around, starting in Italy, then Spain, France, and a few other places I've always wanted to visit. I'll be hiking, exploring cities, soaking in different cultures, and more than anything, I'll be spending time alone, figuring out who I am without her. The decision wasn't an easy one. I was scared, to be honest. Scared of leaving everything behind. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's exactly what I need. I need this time to reset. To clear my head. To get out of the familiar places that keep reminding me of Karen and everything I've been through. I need to disconnect from everything and everyone, so I can rediscover what makes me happy. No more distractions, no more living for other people. Just me. I'll be gone for half a year, and honestly, I don't know what I'll find. Maybe I'll find peace. Maybe I'll find something else. But I do know one thing: I'll be starting this journey with the goal of rediscovering who I am, not as someone who's been betrayed, not as someone who's been hurt, but as Ryan. Just Ryan. The night before I left, I sat in my apartment, staring at the packed suitcase. I'd planned everything meticulously: the hostels, the flights, the activities. But there was something about that empty apartment that felt so final. I wasn't leaving for a vacation. I was leaving to put my life back together. This was a break from everything that had held me down, my memories with Karen, the anger, the past. It was a break from all of it. As I sat there, I couldn't help but think about Karen. I wondered if she'd even notice I was gone. Part of me wanted to reach out and tell her I was leaving, but I knew I couldn't. I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing this for me. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. Tomorrow morning, I would get on that plane, and I wouldn't look back. The first month was everything I hoped for. Italy, in particular, felt like a dream. The food, the culture, the people, it was all so different from everything I had known. The moment I stepped off the plane in Rome, I felt like I was leaving a whole version of myself behind. I visited museums, wandered down narrow streets, ate gelato every single day, and just soaked in the beauty of it all. I spent hours hiking in the hills outside Florence, letting my mind wander freely, away from the pain of the past. The silence was freeing. It was like I could finally hear my own thoughts without them being clouded by hurt or anger. I could think clearly for the first time in a long time. I met a few travelers along the way, people from all over the world. And as much as I enjoyed their company, I was grateful for the moments of solitude. I realized how much I had neglected myself while I was in that relationship. All my energy had gone into Karen, into fixing what couldn't be fixed. And now, for the first time, I was learning to just be. By the time I reached Spain, I had already started to change. I was lighter, more at ease. I wasn't as obsessed with the pain anymore. It wasn't that I had forgotten what had happened. I hadn't erased the betrayal from my mind. But the anger was fading, replaced by something better, acceptance. I had learned what I needed to from the relationship, and now, it was time to move on. There were moments when I'd look at a couple walking hand in hand, and the old pain would flare up for a second. But those moments were becoming fewer and farther between. I was starting to feel like myself again. By the time I got to France, I was doing better than I ever thought I would. I stayed in Paris for a few weeks, renting a tiny apartment overlooking the Seine. I spent my days wandering the city, visiting art galleries, sitting in cafes, and people watching. I loved the anonymity of being in a city where no one knew my story, where I could just be another face in the crowd. It was refreshing. One afternoon, while I was sitting at a cafe, a man came over and started talking to me. His name was Luca. He was Italian, living in Paris, and we hit it off immediately. We spent hours talking, laughing about the oddities of life, and eventually, we grabbed dinner at a little bistro near the Notre Dame. It was the first time I had connected with someone in a way that felt natural, unforced. We talked about everything. Life, travel, love, loss. It was cathartic. And it made me realize just how far I had come. I wasn't looking for validation from anyone anymore. I was learning to live for myself. 6 months passed quickly. In that time, I had visited 5 countries, made friends from around the world, and experienced more than I could have imagined. I came back to the US a different person, more whole, more at peace, and with a deep sense of gratitude for the journey I had just completed. As I sat on the plane heading back home, I thought about what was next. I wasn't sure what the future would bring. Maybe I'd meet someone new. Maybe I'd continue my travels. Or maybe I'd finally settle down and start a new chapter. But whatever happened, I knew one thing for sure: I was ready. I had found peace, not by seeking revenge or by holding on to the past, but by letting go and learning to live for myself. The trip wasn't just about escaping. It was about healing. It was about rediscovering who I was, and what I wanted from life. I landed back home with a sense of calm that I hadn't known in years. I was no longer the man who had been betrayed. I was someone new, someone who had embraced the journey, learned from the pain, and was ready to start living again. The past was behind me, and the future was wide open. And that felt like the greatest gift of all.